Welcome everybody to this Asa Abloy Academy virtual instructor-led training. My name is Chad Tibbets. I'm a training specialist with Asa Abloy Academy. So glad that all 18 of you have joined us today on this Friday afternoon. Hope it is as beautiful where you are as it is here in Dallas, Texas right now. Today's course is going to be on the purpose and operation of door closers. We're going to go through several different things. We're going to stay kind of brand agnostic today and really just kind of talk about some features and benefits and different mounting options, ways that we can install them, things that we just need to consider when recommending different types of door closers on different types of commercial openings. Because as Asa Abloy, we make a ton of different door closer models, and it can get kind of confusing if you're just not used to it. So we're going to try to kind of demystify door closers and talk about some codes and some different things throughout the presentation today. I did want to remind everybody that this VILT session is being recorded. That way we can put it online on our website. So if you have a colleague that couldn't make it today, they can watch it at a later date, or if you want to review it. We also have several of our other VILT sessions available for you guys to rewatch or watch for the first time anytime that you'd like. And currently we're up around 300 different VILT sessions that you guys can check out on our website. Also, while you're there, if you're not signed up for Asa Abloy Academy, please do that. You'll have access to over 50 online courses that are totally free for you guys to take. And once you pass a short quiz at the end of this session, you get a certificate of completion that you can use as a CEU for a lot of professional organizations. Also, this virtual class you can also use for CEUs, but the way we do that is we send you an email that thanks you for your attendance. That's your proof that you attended this 1 hour training today, 45 minutes to an hour training today. And then you can use that to submit to DHI, ALOA, or other security organizations out there. There is a Q&A feature built into Zoom. More than likely, this is not the first time that you have used Zoom in this crazy 2020 year. But if it is, there is a Q&A feature built into Zoom somewhere on your tablet, cell phone, or computer. And feel free to use that to ask me any questions during this presentation. We'll keep this relatively structured, but also informal, and I can do my best to take a look at the Q&A and then answer questions as we go through. And then at the end, if you want to save your questions for the end, I'll leave some time at the end to go through those as best I can. If you have something really specific that you need answered, make sure that you don't click the anonymous or send anonymously. That way we can send you an email with some information. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get started with today's webinar. We're going to talk about different types of closers, why we use them in buildings, mounting options, why we pick different models over others, or why we make so many different models with different brands, how some closers are designed for retrofit solutions. We'll talk a little bit about the template, how you read and decipher the door closer template, along with an easy technique that I have found to adjust a door closer, because we have multiple valves that control stuff, and we'll kind of get into that. And then lastly, Asa Abloy does a really good job of giving you guys tools and resources to find information and just make your overall job easier, whether you're an end user or a distributor, an architect, an integrator. We have several digital tools for you guys, so we'll go through those as well. So why do we need door closers? Well, the number one reason, I think, in my personal opinion, that we need door closers is for codes and standards. We have codes and standards that tell us that if we have a fire rated door, that door has to close and latch. And that's oversimplifying the code. This isn't a code class today, although Katie Flower, if you haven't taken one of her code classes, they're phenomenal. I highly recommend it. But we need that door to close. Now, the code doesn't say that you have to use a hydraulic door closer. It says you can use a couple of spring hinges. The spring hinges have to be rated. You need at least 2 on a door that's up, 7.0, and you may need more the higher you go in the door, the wider, whatever. But door closers are really the best way to do it because we can control them. And then also the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, again, you could potentially use spring hinges to satisfy that. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But again, door closers really give us that control that you don't have with a spring hinge. So on that, we need door closers for control. If you're putting door closers on a school, for instance, and you have these high traffic doors that you want them to close to protect the students in the school, maybe it's an exterior door and kids are leaving. If you've got a door that is just slamming, maybe the door closer is out of adjustment, maybe it's leaking, maybe it was hung on spring hinges, which again, I don't recommend, but we need the door closer to control that weight, that inertia, so that we don't smack it into a wall, that we don't damage the hardware itself, damage the door frame, damage the door itself. Doors are welded, frames are welded oftentimes, and a slamming door can actually wreck everything in that. So you know that if we have an access control device on that door that's all wired, that door to replace it with everything could cost $5,000–6,000. So we want to protect that investment, and door closers are a good way to do that, and definitely protect people's hands and fingers. We don't want to injure somebody because we were irresponsible in putting the wrong door closer on the door, or the technician not adjusting it properly, or not replacing it when it needed to be replaced. We also use door closers for convenience so that we don't have to close the door automatically. Maybe we're pushing a cart through the door. We want that door to close behind us to control the pressure in the room for HVAC, for security. So, convenience is definitely a reason that we do that. For privacy, we want that door to close so that our conversations are private. We know that we sell STC, or sound transmission coefficient doors, to keep noise out of one area. So door closers are definitely necessary for that. For security is a big reason. If we have locking hardware on the door, storeroom lock that locks every time the door closes, and we don't have a door closer on it, the door can easily be just left open, and it kind of defeats the purpose of having a lock on it. So definitely for security. I have a funny personal story on this. Back in 2014, I think it was, we were staying in San Antonio. I was doing some surveys on some commercial properties, and I actually didn't get my hotel door closed all the way. It had spring hinges on it, didn't have a door closer, and we thought it had completely latched, but it didn't. It came almost all the way latched, and we came back from dinner. My wife was with me. We came back from dinner, and the door was latched at that point, but we came in, we were missing a couple of laptops and some luggage and some other stuff. And so we learned, or at least I learned then, number one, check your hotel rooms when you leave, make sure they're pulled all the way closed. But at the same time, the spring hinges that were on that door just did not have enough oomph to get that door pulled all the way closed. So I'm convinced that if it had a door closer, even a smaller door closer like the Norton 1604, the Yale 51, those are just a couple examples. Even a smaller, less expensive door closer, I think, would have done a better job of closing the door than the spring hinges. ASSA ABLOY is really big on protecting the environment, making sure that our products meet certain environmental standards. We have environmental product declarations and health product declarations on many of our doors and hardware. And like I said, we care about the environment. Door closers are integral and important into that, making sure that we keep the hot air outside or the cold air outside of a building whenever we're heating or cooling the inside. So having that door close immediately after somebody walks through it, I think, is important. And for weather conditions, also really important. I grew up in West Texas, and a lot of people think West Texas is El Paso area, and I guess that really is West Texas, but I grew up in the northwestern part, Panhandle area. It's very, very flat. There aren't very many trees other than the trees that people have planted over the last couple hundred years. And the wind can blow like crazy. You feel like you're in the Sahara with a wall cloud of dirt that's blowing through the city. But you can get straight line winds through the city of Lubbock going 60, sometimes 85 miles an hour, and it's not even a tornado. It's just a straight line wind. It'll rip roofs off of commercial buildings, and it wreaks havoc on commercial openings. We actually had a small department store that sold clothes. They had all these clothing racks in the front of their store. They didn't have a properly sized door closer. It wasn't adjusted properly. The wind caught their door, swung it open dramatically. The door closer actually exploded because of all of the internal pressure and sent shrapnel throughout the store, and then sprayed hydraulic fluid all over several racks of clothes. So making sure that we have the correct door closer for the right application, and then also that it's installed and adjusted properly, is really important. And the last thing that I'm going to cover before we kind of move on to different ways that we can mount the door closers and different options available is we also need door closers, especially for those STC rated openings. We have that gasketing, that sound seal, that gasketing that the door needs to press up against so that we are able to get that full benefit from the STC rating. So a good door closer can do that for you. So types of door closers, the most common type of door closer that everybody sells, whether it's Assa Abloy or a competing company, is going to be a rack and pinion door closer. It accounts for 95%, I'm just making that number up, but a large portion of the door closers out there are going to be rack and pinion door closers. They work well. They are easily adjustable. We can add some really cool features to them. There are a lot of different options when it comes to arms. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. But essentially, you have the entire cavity of that door closer full of hydraulic fluid. We have a piston that moves back and forth. It is under power from a spring. So we compress the spring. Once we let go of the door, the spring pushes against hydraulic fluid that flows through these control valves that slow the door down. So what we're going to do now is watch a quick video showing exactly what happens inside of that door closer. It'll give you a better idea about how they work. And again, this really has nothing to do with the specific type of model or the specific model of door closer that we're talking about. If it's a rack and pinion door closer, it doesn't have to look exactly like this Norton 7500 that you're looking at right now. It could be a 1604, it could be a 3000 model, different ones, but internally, they're going to work very similar to this.
Cast iron closers from Assa Abloy are rugged and reliable, providing millions of cycles with minimum maintenance. But the true durability test comes during those inevitable times when extreme forces are applied to the door and the door closer. Our single-piece construction provides uniform strength and wear resistance and eliminates potential leak points. Let's look inside to see what makes this cast iron closer so durable. Here's the basics. Each time the door is opened, the closer arm turns a pinion, which moves a piston inside the fluid-filled chamber. The speed of the piston is controlled by fluid passing from one side of the closer to the other. The valve controls the speed. When the door reaches about 70 degrees open, oil begins flowing through the backcheck valve, gradually increasing the amount of pressure required to open the door farther. This cushioning effect is called the backcheck function. When the door is released, the stored energy in the spring pushes the piston back. The fluid is now routed through valves that control the closing speed of the door. The sweep speed valve meters the oil flow from wide open to within about 7 degrees of closed. The latch valve then takes over, controlling the last 7 to 10 degrees of the closing swing. The latch and sweep speed of the door can be increased or decreased to obtain the desired door motion. The The spring adjust screw may be adjusted to obtain the appropriate closing force and to accommodate for varied door sizes and latching hardware. Our cast iron closers have easily accessible valves for adjusting back check, sweep, and latch speed functions. During the closing motion, internal pressures seldom exceed 50 psi, but some doors are located in high abuse situations. Examples might be a city high-rise on a windy day, or school doors that children constantly force to close. In cases like these, extreme pressure builds up inside the closer body. With no way for the pressure to escape, that force can damage the closer, the door, the frame, and the mounting hardware. This is why our unique self-regulating pressure relief valves are so important. Under abusive conditions, the pressure relief valve on the end of the piston senses the extreme pressure and automatically meters the fluid to achieve more normal pressure levels. The self-regulating pressure relief valve cycles rapidly during extreme pressure events to maintain control of the door. Once normal pressures are achieved, the pressure relief valve is no longer active, but ready for the next time the closer is abused. By releasing this pressure, the valve acts as a shock absorber, preventing damage to the door closer, the mounting hardware, the frame, or the door itself. Another unique feature for our cast iron closer is an independent mounting bracket. This bracket allows easy and accurate alignment. Simply install the bracket and attach the door closer. One-piece cast iron construction, the unique pressure relief valve system, and the independent mounting bracket. These are just some of the reasons our door closers last and last, cycle after cycle, year after year after year.
So I hope that that animated video showing how the fluid actually flows through the valves gives you a better idea exactly how a rack and pinion door closer functions. Now, because it's completely full of fluid, we have to make sure that we don't back those valves all the way out. If we do, the oil has a chance to leak. If the oil leaks out of the door closer, there's no really way that we can bleed it, meaning that there's no way that we can get all of the air out of a door closer. And a door closer that is leaking is now a liability. It is something that we can't control any longer, and you never know where that oil that is, not the oil, but where the air that displaced the oil is going to find its way through a valve. So let's just say that we have a leaking door closer and it's got air in it. It seems to function fine for, most of the closing cycle, but then it gets to the latching area, and maybe that's where the air is trapped. Well, air is compressible, so as soon as we get to the latching valve, that door is just going to slam. And again, it's a liability for, if you're an end user, it's a liability for you, where that slamming motion, and you get a big heavy door, big heavy spring in that door closer that can catch somebody, that can hit them in the head, that could hit their hand, catch their hands. So definitely leaking door closers we need to replace. And one of the things that ASSA ABLOY does with all of the models that I know of is we stake the valves, and that just means that we punch the opening of the threaded hole where the valve is. It makes it harder for a technician or somebody who's going to be adjusting that door closer to completely remove the valve. Now, just in experience teaching door closer hands-on courses for the last 5 years, if a student or a technician wants to remove that valve and they are determined to do so, staking that opening is not going to prevent that. So it's really just supposed to be kind of a warning sign. Hey, by the way, you've come out far enough. Now, if you adjust the door closer properly, you should never have that valve out far enough to even come to that staked position. So if you're adjusting a door closer and you keep on backing that valve out and nothing is happening, meaning no speed is changing as you're adjusting that valve out, more than likely you're adjusting the wrong valve. So just a side note there. Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, is legislation that applies to some doors in a commercial facility, right? These are doors that are being used by the public. That doesn't apply as far as door closers are concerned, doesn't apply to exterior doors because we have to make sure that we secure our buildings. It does not apply to fire-rated doors. ADA does not apply when it comes to door closers for internal building commercial use only, let's say electrical rooms, boiler rooms, janitorial closets, engineering rooms, storage rooms that are not being used by the public. All of those rooms that are not being used by the public don't really apply to this ADA opening force requirement. Now, for all of those doors where you are having public use that are non-fire rated, we have to make sure that it requires 5 pounds or less to open that door once the door has been unlatched. If you have an inspector out and they are checking for opening force and they just pull the handle down, or maybe they disengage the exit device and they immediately use their force gauge on the door and start either pulling on the door or pushing, depending on what type of gauge they have, that's incorrect. We need to unlatch the door, open the door beyond its latching area. So remember, the latching valve only kicks in around 7 degrees or so. So we unlatch the door, we open it to where the door would start engaging into its sweep area, and that's where we check for the 5 pounds. ADA also talks about closing or sweep speed. Again, that is from the 90-degree position to 12 degrees. And this comes right out of the code. It needs to be from 90 degrees to 12 degrees, and that's a minimum of 5 seconds. 5 seconds is not that much time. So a lot of commercial facilities don't need to really worry about this so much because their standard is going to be 7 seconds, 8 seconds, some places 12 seconds. It really depends on what you're trying to move in and out of that door. If you're always moving carts or wheelchairs, gurneys, something like that through that door, 5 seconds is not going to be enough time for you. But just know that 5 seconds is a minimum for, again, those public use doors that are non-fire rated. There are many different ways that we can mount a door closer onto a door. And because of that, there are also many different arms available depending on the configurations. This mounting here, where we're on the pull side, the door closer is mounted to the door, the arm is mounted to the frame, the arm sticks off of the frame 90 degrees. I do want to mention that if you come up to a door that it has door closer on it that's mounted regular, and you see that arm is pulled all the way over to where it's basically parallel with the frame, that arm is not indexed properly, or somebody is trying to compensate for the loss of oil that's in that door closer, and they're trying to get a little bit more use out of that door closer, and it's missing half its oil. So a regular arm closer mounted properly, again, the closer is on the door, the arm is mounted to the frame, and from that bracket that's mounted to the frame coming straight out, so if you can see my cursor here, from this position here, we are 90 degrees to that frame. And if you see a door closer that is, the arm is not 90 degrees and it is mounted like this, then either they didn't mount the door closer in the right position, or they didn't index the arm correctly, or maybe they just, if it's an adjustable arm, it's not in the right position. Changing where it's mounted, changing the arm relationship, all of those things affect how the door closer is going to operate. I've walked sites, I have colleagues that have walked multiple sites where the construction is finished and got 100 door closers that are not working properly. And come to find out, it was that they were either not mounted on the door in the right position per the templating that came with that model, or the arm is not on the right position on the spindle or the pinion, or the arm is not 90 degrees off of the frame. So all of those little things, again, affect the way that the door closer operates. It affects where the valves engage, and it affects how well you can adjust it or how much adjustability you have with that door closer. An issue that we have with regular arm closers is that that arm does stick 90 degrees off of the frame, which makes it perfect to do pull-ups on, at least in a high school, or it's perfect for people to hang their dry cleaning on and get caught in the arm and everything else. And also another issue with these is there are some companies making aftermarket locks, if you will. They slide onto the arm and they think it's a good solution for active shooter situations, preventing somebody from being able to open that door. Well, that is a major violation of life safety code and fire code. So please don't do that. But again, these are very easy to install. It's a quick way to install a door closer. They're not the most aesthetically pleasing, especially if this is a corridor. You're walking down the main hallway of a school, got classrooms on both sides. The doors are going to swing more than likely into the corridor. So you don't want to see that door closer arm sticking out into the walkway. So there are other ways that we can mount a door closer. With your regular arm mount, you don't have a lot of options when it comes to different types of arms. You're really, and this goes for just about every model out there, you really have an adjustable arm that either has a bolt that allows it to slide back and forth, or you have an arm that screws in and out. It has a threaded shaft on one end to allow it to be adjustable, or you have a heavy duty rigid. If you're mounting a door closer regular arm, you know it's going to be an abusive situation. It's going to get a lot of use just every day. It's going to be open and closed. And I personally would recommend the rigid arms. The rigid arms, you do need to make sure that you really pay attention to the templating and your door closer is mounted exactly where it's supposed to be mounted. Otherwise, that rigid arm is not going to fit correctly. And again, it's rigid, it's not adjustable. So you really need to make sure that you mount it correctly. But really, you kind of only have two options. You've got that adjustable, and then you've got the heavy duty rigid with the regular arm. So with Top Jam, it kind of looks like the inverse of regular arm, but now we're on the push side of the door. The door closer is mounted on the Top Jam, that's why we call it that, and the arm is mounted to the door. Again, we're 90 degrees off of that door, making sure that the arm is in the right position. So if you again see a Top Jam door closer and that arm is not 90 degrees off of the door, something's wrong. Something's not mounted right, it's not adjusted right, it's not indexed correctly. Something's going on. So check that. These are also very strong. They're very efficient. Again, not as aesthetically pleasing. You have to make sure that you have enough room on the frame to mount the door closer. We do, however, make several different drop plates and mounting plates that allow you to lower that door closer on the frame so that you have room to mount it. Where I see Top Jam closers a lot is on really heavy duty exterior doors where we need all the strength available that is in that Top Jam closer mount. We need more strength than we would typically get from a parallel. So that's where I see it. Also, aluminum storefront, you'll see Top Jam a lot, especially with the Norton 1604 closer or the Yale 51. Those closers fit perfectly on the aluminum storefront, the 2-inch frame, and you'll see Top Jam a bunch that way. Things that you have to consider with Top Jam, if that's the way that you're going to mount the door closer and you're trying to figure out which model to install, you have to pay attention to the reveal. And the reveal, if you can see my cursor, is from the face of the frame here where the door closer is mounted to the door. That distance is the reveal. And we have different arms, and this pretty much goes with every model that has Top Jam as an option. We're going to have several different arms depending on that reveal. So your standard arm, this is just a 7500, a Norton 7500 as an example, but the standard arm will work a reveal from 0 to 3 inches. So if you're beyond that, you need to go with the J arm, that's 2 3/4 all the way up to 7 inches. And we have some closers that have arms that'll go all the way up to like a 10-inch reveal or something. If you've got a really thick wall, really thick frame, that's something you just have to pay attention to, because what'll happen is if we just have a standard arm that's works up to a 3-inch and you have a really deep reveal, well, the door's not going to open all the way. It's not going to open potentially even 90 degrees because that arm just isn't long enough. So definitely something you have to consider. If you're stocking closers in a tri-pack, meaning they'll work, they have everything in the box that'll work regular, top jam, and parallel, more than likely that's going to be a regular arm that can be used top jam that'll only work that 0 to 3 inches. So that's something to consider. So if somebody is just selling the closer in a tri-pack, which tri-packs are awesome, but you end up having a door that has the deeper reveal, top jam's not going to work. You're going to have to get the longer arm. I hope that makes sense. Got a couple questions here. We're going to take a look here. Can you show the reveal again? Absolutely. So the reveal is, again, from this mounting surface, the face of the frame, the distance to the door. So if I took a tape measure and I went from the door and I came off of the door, so we can even look at the arm. Here's the face of the frame, or face of the door, down this arm. Once we get to the edge of this frame, that's going to be the reveal distance. Yeah, so are those measurements for the specific door closer, or are they generic? So they are very specific. Every single door closer model that I have ever come across has different templating. Even sometimes arms that are in the same family. And this especially goes for parallel arms. When we get into those here in a second, you really have to pay attention to the door closer model. So you measure the reveal. If you know that you're going to be mounting top jam, we need to know what the reveal is specifically. And then if we have a door closer model in mind, usually it'll have an arm where it will work with that reveal range. Again, like this is a 7500, I just use it as an example. And we have a 2 3/4 to a 7-inch. We do make other door closers that go even beyond that, but you'd have to take a look at the actual catalogs for those. Good questions. Thank you for asking questions. It's great. The next, and probably the most common way that you're going to see a door closer mounted in a commercial facility, is going to be parallel. And really for the main reason that the door closer kind of can hide and just blend into the opening. If, again, this is a bunch of classrooms, and let's say that all of these classrooms open into the main corridor, well, if you're in the corridor, you can't see the door closers because they're on the inside of the room. They're also less prone to vandalism because the arm itself is parallel to the face of the door. That makes it hard to do pull-ups on or hang your dry cleaning on, all of those things. Downsides to parallel is that we lose about 25 to 30% of the door closer's strength, just its natural strength and ability to close that door. And door closers oftentimes, almost always, will have an adjustable spring where you can take an Allen wrench or a wrench itself and tighten the spring that's built into that door closer, and that increases the force. It also makes it harder for you to open the door, but gives the door closer more oomph to close the door. If you have a really large, heavy door mounted parallel, and then also mount it in a way that we get 180-degree swing on that door, because depending on where we mount the door closer on the door, we can get sometimes 90 degrees, 110 degrees, 120, 150, 180. That all depends on the templating. And those options will be listed on the template itself. All of those measurements are very specific. You can't just say, no, I think I'll mount the door closer here, and yeah, that'll give me 90 degrees or 180. Every single door closer model has a specific template and specific measurements. So again, if you're walking a job site and you've got 100 door closers that are not working properly, more than likely it's because the templating was either misinterpreted or wasn't followed. Maybe they meant to template the door closer to 180, but they only templated it to 110. Well, you've got holes drilled in the door. There's not a lot we can do without moving the door closer. And if it's fire rated, man, you're in trouble, because we have to figure out how to get that door recertified if you're going to put new holes in it. So we've got some issues. Door closers are one of those things that you just can't throw on a door without reading the templating. So again, parallel, really aesthetic, can be an issue closing a big heavy door, especially if we have an unbalanced HVAC system. We've got stack pressure, fire, smoke seal, some type of weather stripping, gasketing, something like that. Sometimes parallel just doesn't have the strength to close the door. You can get all of the door closers with ASA ABLOY in some configuration or another. You can get them custom plated, custom powder coated. So it's really great. You can get, let's say you have a really cool black suede powder coat frame or something and door, you can get that matched to the same color, and it just kind of blends in and disappears. One good thing about parallel is that you have more arm options and configurations than any other type of mounting. And this is just a handful. I'm just showing you 4 right here. There are many, many, many different types of arms that we can get with parallel closers. Again, it's the most common way that we can mount a door closer. So different arms are really cool. We can get hold open arms in several different configurations. We have ramps, we have ball bearings, we have friction discs and jack screws, and all kinds of different ways that you can hold open a door. Of course, a non-fire rated door can't put any type of hold open arm on a door that is fire rated, because you can't mechanically hold them open. Now, the only way you can hold a fire rated door open is if you have it electrically held open, and that's tied into the fire alarm system so that the door closes whenever there's a fire. So those are things to consider. But the parallel arm options are really cool. You can get stops built in. You can get hard stops, or they call them positive stops, where the door goes open to a specific degree and boom, stops. And sometimes people use that instead of using a wall stop, because there are times when wall stops just can't be mounted. Perhaps you have a full glass frame outside wall that's just all glass, aluminum frame, something like that, and just not really a good way to put a wall stop on that. Floor stops collect dirt and dust and are tripping hazards and all kinds of issues, so floor stops are not a good option. So you can add a positive stop or a compression stop, a spring stop, all kinds of different options with the parallel arms. Now, these specialty arms don't come in the tri-packed kit. So that's something you've got to pay attention to. If you're ordering these closers and you're just used to ordering the tri-packed version of that closer model, well, if you want the specialty arms, that's going to be a door closer dedicated to that parallel arm. So something to consider on that. Another way that you can order door closers with certain models is the track mount. Track mounts, again, very aesthetically pleasing. That's really the only reason why people use the track. Again, trying to get that sleek look, trying to get that door closer to disappear into the door. All the previous types of mounts that I mentioned earlier are not handed, meaning that you don't have to specify right hand or left hand. But with this, and they'll work push or pull, right? If depending on what type of arm you have. But with track, you definitely have to specify what side of the door it's going to go on. You don't have to specify right or left, but you do have to specify push or pull. The tracks are completely different, and this goes again with every model that I know about that has track as an option for its mounting. You do have to specify push or pull. Now, the tracks can also be ordered with a cushion compression stop, and then also some of them can be ordered with a hold open that you can turn on or turn off. But if it's got a hold open on the track itself, whether you can turn it off or not, we can't use it on not on a fire rated door. Okay, these are the least efficient way to mount a door closer, a rack and pinion door closer. So it's two strongest ways where you get the most out of the door closer's ability to close that door is the regular arm and top jam. Parallel is a little weaker, and then track is the weakest. And typically tracks are limited also to 110 degree open. You'll have to check your specific model for that, but from what I've seen, track is for the most part limited to about 110 degrees on one side, and then some of them you can open the door to 180 on the other side, but you'll have to check that. When we're installing door closers, I mentioned earlier that it really depends on your model. You have to pay attention to your specific model, and even within the model, the arm choice that you're using changes the templating as well. So it can be really confusing. All of our templates are available online. You can print them off as PDFs. If somebody went through the package and they lost all the instruction sheets, all of those are completely available online for free. Don't even have to log in with some special password or anything. You can get to all of this stuff. I used to be a manager over a crew of people, and this was kind of before we had it all available really easily digitally like we do now. This is 15 years ago. But I would take all of our standard templates that our guys used and installed, and we put them on a file on their phones. So when they got to the job site, if they lost the instructions, boom, they could just pull the PDF up on their phones and they'd have all the templating. But what I want to point out here is that almost every door closer has what we call an A measurement, and oftentimes they'll also have a B measurement, as in Bravo. So alpha and beta measurement. Okay. Now, for sure, they always have an alpha measurement, and that's going to be from the center line of the hinge. And this doesn't matter if it's regular arm, top jam, or parallel. Your A measurement is going to start off with the center line of the hinge or pivot, and then ultimately go to the first set of mounting holes for that door closer. In this case, again, I'm, as an example, using Norton 7500, and that A measurement, the reason why it doesn't have an actual measurement, because it wants to know how far you want that door to open. So if we want it to open up to 100 degrees, then that A measurement ends up being 7 5/8. The more degree that we want that door to open, the closer that door closer, the closer that door closer needs to be to the hinge. That's just physics. That's the way it works. So at 4 inches and 1/8, that door closer is going to be closer to the hinge. That's going to allow the door to open to that 180 degrees. That also makes the door closer weaker. So the closer we get to the hinge, the weaker the door closer is going to be. So we need to balance those things. If the door is opening into a corridor, and that corridor is a means of egress for evacuation, then we want a door closer that is templated to 180, so that door will actually lay up against, or can lay up against, the wall of that corridor, so it doesn't impede traffic. People are flowing, they're crowding, they're rushing. You don't want doors on either side of a classroom corridor preventing people from evacuating. So you want those doors to open up and swing all the way out 180 degrees. So that's something that has to be discussed, and you have to make sure that you've got a door closer and arm configuration that will allow you to swing that door 180 degrees. Now down here is a little picture of a pinion or spindle. That's the little part that the arm hooks up to. And you have these either letters or numbers, depending on the arm, depending on the model. We have to make sure that it's indexed properly. So again, if you're walking job site, door closers aren't working right, possibly that the installer did not snap the arm on in the right position. That's great. Provided that he did everything else correctly, he mounted it on the door in the right position, we can just pop that off and put it on the right position, and everything's good to go. With parallel, we're still have an A measurement, center line of the hinge to the first mounting holes of the door closer, This time we have a Bravo measurement, and that's, again, center line of the hinge or pivot to the first mounting hole of the shoe or bracket. We still have a chart here, and if we want it to open 180 degrees, our A dimension is 5 inches and a quarter, and our B dimension happens to be 5 3/4 inches. These things have to be looked at, and it's very specific. And then also the pinion where the arm snaps on, we're going to be at Nancy if it's going to be a right hand, and then will be a Yankee if it's going to be left hand. Again, things that you have to look at and you have to pay attention to. Some door closers have very detailed dimensions that can hurt your eyes if you don't know which ones that you're supposed to look at. Again, we have an A dimension, we have a B dimension, and in this case, we could have a C dimension if we have a track, just things that you got to think about. But this has a stop built into the cushion arm. This is called the Unitrol arm. It's available with several different door closer brands that we have. It's available with Corbin Russwin. It's available with Norton, and it's available with Yale. I don't think it's available with Sargent, but with different configurations for this Unitrol arm. We have a spring that helps to cushion the door when it goes to its full open. And then also this is the stop arm, or a hold open arm, I should say. And we need to know where we want it. So if we have let's say we have a 32-inch wide door, and we want the hold open to go at 110 degrees and the stop at 115 degrees, then we need to follow these mounting dimensions. And you could see how if we just get this wrong, well, the hold open's not going to work potentially at all. The door could actually swing into a wall, and the hold open mechanism of the arm doesn't even engage. So definitely have to pay attention to the templating. Most of the time when I see issues out there in the field, it's because of this. You can also get overhead concealed closers from different brands, from Rixson, from Norton. Sargent sells them. Things you have to consider: the frame and the door need to be prepped. I would highly recommend that they're factory prepped. You may have a really good metal shop. If you're a distributor, that's great. It takes a lot of labor, a lot of time for these types of closers. The plus is that they completely disappear. You can't see them other than just an arm from one side of the door. Very vandal resistant because you can't get to the door closer. You can get them in single or double acting. They're kind of cool. They have about as much efficiency to open and close that door as a track mount. So they're not the strongest way to close a door, but it's definitely something that you can do. Now, all of those were rack and pinion style door closers. This next one that we're going to show you about is cam action. Cam action is also available from several brands: Norton, Sargent, Corbin Russwin, with different model numbers. And it's a very efficient way to open and close the door. It allows you to overcome some of those stack pressure issues, weather stripping, seal, gasketing issues, and then also meet ADA guidelines just because of its innovative design. So we're going to watch a quick video on the cam action closer and then continue.
The Norton 2800 ST cam action door closer features a revolutionary design that combines the aesthetics of a track type closer with superior performance. Our cam action closers are incredibly efficient. The secret is this unique cam assembly. Closing forces are applied to the spindle through the continuously smooth surface of the cam and roller bearing follower. The combination of the piston and cam design greatly increases efficiency. The results are astonishing. On doors equipped with cam action closers, the strength required to pull the door open remains easy throughout the entire opening range. On doors using a rack and pinion closer with a track, the effort required to open the door rises exponentially as the door is opened. There's also a difference in how each door will close. The cam action closer applies a consistent amount of force across the entire closing range, and the closing force actually rises decreases at the last moment, right when the door needs extra force to set the latch. The force of a rack and pinion closer with track decreases as the door closes, providing the least amount of force at latch. Simply put, the Norton 2800 ST cam action door closer is the most efficient surface-mounted door closer on the market today. This means that a door equipped with this closer will feel light to open, yet still have plenty of power to overcome light stack pressure or other problems at latch. Norton Cam Action Technology, combining the very best in aesthetics, performance, and innovation.
With other track type, just like the Cam Action, you do need to specify push or pull when ordering the Cam Action door closer. They're really innovative. They're a really good option when you're trying to close that door and you have to meet ADA. Moving on, the next type, and a really kind of cool retro look, Potbelly. The 78 series with Norton, I think, is the only series that we still sell in this Potbelly configuration. It's available with a corner mount bracket, which is great for those old historical restorations with arched top doors. And that's really all I'm going to say about this one. Is it's coming back every year. Our sales for this door closer increase 30 to 50% because people like that look when they're trying to restore these really cool old buildings. So it's definitely something that you can consider. Not that many arm configuration options, not really that many ways that you can mount it, but definitely if you have an arch topped door and frame, the corner bracket makes it a lot easier to do that. And then lastly, floor closers. Floor closers are really heavy duty. If you have a door that's beyond the 250, 300, 350 pound range, a rack and pinion closer is not going to be the best option. All of that weight is trying to pull the door out of the opening. It can put a ton of stress on the hinges, but a floor closer takes all that weight and puts it right into the floor, most of the time into concrete. And they require some planning. They're not the easiest to install. Rixson sells these. They have some really great tools that you can buy from them, that plumb bobs and alignment tools that definitely makes them easier to install. But if you have a really heavy bullet resistant, attack resistant, blast resistant, lead lined, hurricane rated, these really big heavy doors, and you need a good closer, a floor closer is honestly the best way to do it. We have so many different models within each brand, and Norton does a good job of giving these charts talking about frequency of use and features, right? Obviously, the more features and the more durable the door closer, the more it's going to cost. That's just kind of the way it works. But these charts are really good when you're trying to figure out what door closer you need for a particular project, if it just hasn't been specified. Definitely talk to your local DSS rep. They have a lot of knowledge when it comes, and a lot of experience with different models, and oftentimes they can walk job sites and recommend different door closer models for different customers if the customer doesn't already have a standard. Really cool finishes that are really popular this year, and actually last year, are the black suede powder coat and the white suede powder coat. I will say this: pay attention to the closer models. Sometimes to get powder coated finishes, you have to order the closer body with a metal cover. Okay. Most of our closers come with a molded plastic cover unless you specify the metal cover. Sometimes if you specify a plated finish or a powder coated finish, and then you don't also put the metal cover on the order form, then that's just going to be delayed. Metal covers are not a large cost upcharge, so some to definitely consider and look at. Also, several of our door closer models come with retrofit plates. If you have an end user that's moving from an LCN 4040, 4050 XP model, they have a very specific bolt pattern. We have some door closers that will mount directly to that bolt pattern. And then other door closers that don't, we sell these retrofit plates where the end user can, they don't have to put any more holes in their door, making it Swiss cheese, and our door closer will mount directly to that. So we're going to watch this video on adjusting door closers. This will be one of the last things that we do here before we go through some of our digital support tools. We're running a little, about 5 minutes behind. We'll do our best to make it up.
The door closer that I'm going to show you how to adjust today is the Sargent 1431, but this would work the same way with any of our models with ASSA ABLOY, Norton, Sargent, Corbin Russwin, Yale. Any of those would adjust very similarly to this, as long as we have a back check valve, a closing or sweep speed valve, and a latching valve, and a power adjustment. So I want to show you today how I adjust a door closer to do a couple of different things. One, to get a visual representation of exactly what goes on in a door closer and how it functions. And two, how to really quickly and efficiently get to within my tolerances that I need for the door closer to function properly. On our back check side, our back check valve is here, noted by a B on our closer body. That prevents the door from slamming into a wall or a window, prevents wind from catching the closer and pulling on the arm unnecessarily. We're going to adjust that. The next, we're going to adjust our closing speed valve or our sweep speed valve, and also our latching speed valve. And we'll be able to demonstrate exactly what those valves do and how they function. The first thing we want to do is close all of our valves in our closer body, rotating them clockwise, so to the right, with our 1/8" Allen wrench. The next thing we want to do is actually open our door. So, didn't mention earlier, we need to do this with the door closed. So with the door open now, you notice that I'm putting pressure on the door, but the door's not opening. That's because I'm restricting oil from passing through the back check valve. When oil is restricted, the door doesn't open. I need to take my 1/8" Allen wrench and actually back that valve out. So a minute ago, we turned it clockwise. Now we're going to turn it counterclockwise, and all of a sudden, the door will start to open further. Okay, you can feel that cushion that we need. Now, if I let go of the door, not touching the door right now, it's not going to close because I'm preventing oil from running through my closing speed valve. Take my Allen wrench and loosen my closing speed valve until I get that timing that I want. Now notice that the door closed to a certain point. Well, this last few degrees of our closing is our latch position. The door will not close as long as our latch valve is screwed in. So we need to back our latch valve out to allow our door to finish closing. Okay. So we're really close to having a perfectly adjusted door closer, but now we need to check it. So I'm going to forcefully push on the door to check my back check. Once we get our back check perfect, then I'll let the door close, and we'll actually use our watch to time the door closing from a 90-degree open position. Right there, the back check was a little too loose. So we'll give our back check half a turn and try that again. Right there, that's about what we want for our back check. The door did not stop abruptly, but came to a stop with kind of a cushion. That's what we want. Next, I'll open the door to the 90-degree point and actually time with my watch. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's a little fast, so we'll slow down our sweep or our closing speed. Give that just about a quarter turn. We'll see what that gives us. And that's within tolerance. So very easily, very quickly, I was able to get this closer into a proper closing speed. We have a very nice cushion back check, so we don't damage a window, a wall, a picture, or something like that on the other side. And I did not have to open and close the door 100 times to get it to that tolerance.
That video is also available on YouTube. It's available on Sargent's YouTube channel, Norton's YouTube channel. So if you like that and you want to share it with people, it's available there. That method for adjusting the door closer works really well if you can get to the valves when the door is closed. I realize that sometimes the arm is in the way with the door closed, but definitely a good way to show especially new installers how to adjust a door closer, because they're never ever backing the valves out too far, losing oil and then damaging the closer. If you guys on the call work with ASSA ABLOY products at all and you have not downloaded the ASSA ABLOY customer support app available on the iTunes App Store or from the Google Play Store, definitely download that. That allows you to get to all of the installation instructions, catalogs, cut sheets, warranty certifications, certificates, as well as a way that you can contact customer support and technical service for every brand here in North America. If you're on a desktop, the ASSA ABLOY Resource Center is a great place to go. You can go to assaabloydss.com and then click on Resource Center at the top. Again, you can get to all of our PDFs, all of our catalogs, digital catalogs, where you can search those. It's really awesome. Bilt, B-I-L-T, is an app. It's a third-party app that we put installation instructions on. It's interactive. It goes step by step. Don't know if we've got a lot of door closers on there, but definitely new products that we put. A lot of access control products are on Bilt. And again, it's like step by step, animated. You can zoom in and zoom out, rotate images. It's really awesome. We just launched our ASSA ABLOY egress calculator. So if you're calculating egress, you're trying to figure out how many doors you need, how big, all of these things for egress, door swing direction. It's phenomenal. Katie Flower built this tool and was the project manager for this launch. So check that out. Once a week, every Thursday, Katie Flower is doing a how-to tutorial on how to use this egress calculator. You do need to take her free 1-hour course. Again, she's doing that every Thursday. And once you take that course, she will send you a link to download this free tool. And again, it really just makes the code compliance easy. And then there's additional tools available on the extranet, online order entry, the digital catalog conversion tools between manufacturers is really cool. And then access control configurator, if you're trying to figure out all of the part number strings for a Bluetooth available reader with a black bezel, with this type of handle, with this type of mortise lock, with a door position sensor built into it, all of those things. You get a gigantic long part number string. So the access control configurator gives you that and also gives you cut sheets for it. With that, I want to thank everybody for hanging out with us today. I know we're 4 minutes over. I'm going to hang out. If anybody has any questions at all, please just ask those. Otherwise, thank you so much for coming and joining us today. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day and a wonderful weekend. Thank you very much.